This is Dolynny TV, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, good evening, good tomorrow, wherever you're tuning in from. Glad to have you aboard as we get set to discuss some more Edmonton Oilers news. Back in the studio doing my thing finally after a tumultuous week of a lot of stuff going on. The situation at work has escalated to a crisis level, which is good. We needed to get there to get things accomplished, and now we are. But no, the Oilers have had a pretty busy week as well. Yesterday, of course, trading for Jayden Grubbe and then signing him later in the day. I figured it would probably happen sometime live when Patrick or I were live doing our videos. That didn't turn out to be the case. Happened a little bit later, and of course, worked until 8 o'clock last night. Couldn't really cover it, so we're talking about it today. But there's also been some other news about that June 1st date that we needed to keep in mind, so we'll talk about that in a matter of moments. But friends, before we get too deep into things here, if you are new to Dolynny TV, I want to welcome you in for the first time, and I want you to consider hitting that subscribe button here. Stay tuned with as late of Oilers news as they can possibly bring you. It's a whole different shebang in the summertime. I learned that last year. I learned that the year before is when we giddy up in the summertime, we giddy up and there's a whole bunch of things going on. And hey, you know what? When it's hard to come home in the afternoons after work, hey, you just make it do. So anyway, that's where we're at, right? Is the Oilers have had a pretty eventful past 48 hours, I guess you could say. And the biggest thing is the Jayden Grubbe trade for the 5th round pick in 2023. We signed him to a deal. And the best part of it is he ends up becoming a piece of the future for the Oilers. One of those guys that we had a role, we had a spot for within the organization, a guy who wanted that role, who wanted that spot, and has now taken it and is ready to run with it. So that's excellent. But the bigger news today is obviously kind of what came down the pipe on June 1st. We had two, as of yesterday, pending free agents that were due up June 1st, and that being Jayden Grubbe, who signed the contract yesterday, and then today Patrick Pistola, who we were waiting word on. Pretty much the consensus across the Oilers insiders was it was 99% unlikely to happen, and it didn't end up happening. So officially, you can say the Edmonton Oilers absolutely, whether Jesse Puljujarvi does anything the rest of his career or whatever, had a bust of a draft pick in Jesse Puljujarvi way back in 2016. So we capped on Puljujarvi as essentially all that happens, right? We traded Jesse Puljujarvi for nothing. We have nothing remaining of that first round draft pick from 2016 other than now somehow that $3 million of cap space for Jesse Puljujarvi is allocated to Matthias Ekholm. I guess long run short of it, we have a lot to be thankful for when it comes to Jesse Puljujarvi and how it all played out at the very last hour. But organization-wise, this is a very big blemish, right? They draft a kid that was riding a high of a World Juniors, comes into the draft, ends up going to the Oilers, ends up becoming a full-time NHLer right away because the Oilers were the Oilers. And end of the day, really it didn't benefit anyone. Didn't benefit the Oilers organization, and sure as heck didn't benefit Jesse Puljujarvi. And it was just a tumultuous up and down all around. He leaves town for a year. Like, it was just a disaster left, right, and center from the word go when it comes to Jesse Puljujarvi in Edmonton. And at the end of the day, we end up trading him away for essentially absolutely nothing. At the trade deadline, yes, you traded Jesse Puljujarvi for cap space, but going forward, you've got nothing remaining of Jesse Puljujarvi. And it might sound like I'm bitter about that or whatever, but it's just more so just make sure we hone in on the fact that we failed here, right? I mean, yes, Puljujarvi didn't pan out to be a top draft pick in the 2016 draft, but at the same rate, too, you can't just blame the player straight up when the Oilers shoulda, coulda, woulda, many different ways with this situation. So that's unfortunate. Ken Holland tried his best to salvage it. At that point, it was too late for Jesse Puljujarvi and the player he had become in Edmonton, but hey, you know what? Wish him the best, and hopefully it all plays out for us going forward. But very, very unfortunate with the way that all worked out for the Edmonton Oilers and all that, because you would have liked to see it definitely work out a little bit better. Sorry, I just have a notification up here on the screen. There it is. Good to go. So when it comes down to Jayden Grubbe, right? Well, that's a success. So that's a huge get. And I guess that's where I want to focus on more so is we had two pending free agents as of today, as of yesterday. And Jayden Grubbe signs the deal because the Oilers obviously didn't work that trade for him not to. But Patrick Pistola, to get into the reasoning behind why everybody thought it was highly unlikely he wouldn't become an Edmonton Oiler or wouldn't sign with the Oilers this season, is because he signed a 1-year deal in Finland just around the time the Oilers had traded for him. So it kind of made it tough to go out there and ensure that he would become a member of the organization. And I think he's kind of got his path designed as opposed to the Oilers had a path for him. So that's a tough get. But again, Pistola, hey, if he wants to do what he wants to do, we'll take the cap space. We'll take the win in having Matthias Ekholm. Obviously, it would have been a much bigger win had we won the Stanley Cup, had we advanced to the third round, had we made the Cup final. All woulda, coulda, shoulda at this point, and now it's about building that team for next year. But when it really comes down to it now, the Oilers invited two youngsters to development camp. I got the notes on that. Give me a second here just to pull it up in the text messages from earlier today. Bang. So the Oilers today invited Will Zapernick, which is a forward, to development camp, and Mr. Defenseman guy Mike Brown to development camp as well. That per Mark Diver. That was on Oilers Central's Instagram account earlier today. So we'll see what ends up coming from that. Zapernick is with Vermont and Brown is with Merrimack. Both players really no stats that would jump off the screen from the grab I got. So that's a big kind of situation that we'll kind of keep track of once it starts developing a little bit more. But I would expect you see a lot of these no-name prospects that maybe one or two people in the fan base ever heard of before kind of be at this development camp for the Oilers, just knowing in the fact that we have no draft picks this year, right? Yeah, okay, normally you get 4 of your draft picks out of 7 rounds at this development camp, right? Your first rounder, your second rounder, probably your 4th rounder, and your 7th rounder. That's how it usually plays out, is it's never all rounds consecutively because you took somebody who's overseas or something like that. But realistically, that's all there is to it at this point, is the Oilers are going to have to rely on getting some different faces in, try and groom guys to become a part of the organization via the AHL deal with the Bakersfield Condors first, kind of how we worked up James Hamlin, kind of how we've worked up several other players over the past little bit here. And the last real note I want to touch on today is the Condors announced business management changes. So this really doesn't affect the Edmonton Oilers, really doesn't affect much of the on-ice product, much of the situation within the Oilers organization. But OEG did announce that Matt Riley is departing as president of the Bakersfield Condors, and this is one of those situations where it'll be kind of an onus from Ryan Holt, who is the play-by-play broadcaster for the Condors, and Justin Fosbender, I think is how you say that, assuming the lead business role in Bakersfield this season. So that's what you need to know on that front. Really a lot to talk about nowadays, but it's just I got to cover off what I know and got to cover off what I've had a chance to discuss today. So, friends, I am Tyson. This is Dolynny TV. Thank you so much for tuning in this afternoon. Well, I will see you up in Edmonton for Luke Combs on Saturday. If you're coming out for a little bit of Commonwealth Stadium action on the weekend, definitely you'll see me trolling around the old concourse there a few times trying to grab water and stay hydrated during that show. I'm sure it's going to be a great time, and I'm looking forward to being back home, in a sense, in Edmonton this weekend. So, friends, I am up on out of here.